Welcome back to Avaya, Dr. Ameet.
Thank you, Brielle. Thank you, listeners. We're going to explore everything from sexual abuse, vaginal dryness, erectile dysfunction, weight loss, and healing all these things with naturopathic medicine, homeopathy, family constellations therapy for family trauma as well, and of course, liver detox and a whole bunch of other goodies. And
Awesome.
yeah.
Yes, thank you. I can't wait to learn from you, hear what you have to say about all these different topics that we're going to be going over today. So I'd love if you could get started by just telling us about how family trauma and sexual abuse interferes with sex and intimacy.
Awesome question. So, what I've seen in a few clients is that during sex, they might freeze, or there's vaginismus, so vaginal spasms, or they just feel awkward being touched. Yeah. And that's the freeze response. And that often happens after abuse and or emotional shock as well. I've had multiple clients with incest or incestual abuse or sexual abuse from the parents or uncles and things like that at a young age. And they try and go into relationships or they go into healthier relationships, but something gets triggered while they're in that intimate space when they're becoming sexually aroused or when somebody's too close. The body just remembers that event. And whether it's abuse, whether it's sexual abuse or even emotional abuse, yeah, the body goes into that freeze response. And that freeze response, or that, I guess, that block from intimacy can be healed either using Gestalt therapy, EMDR, and my favorite is family constellations therapy. And why family constellations therapy? Is because family constellations therapy heals the root cause of most traumas. Yeah. And I've often seen sexual abuse, especially from family members, be due to an entanglement in the family system, actually. So, for example, if the father abuses the child, sometimes the father either is not connected to the mother. One, I've seen many examples of that, is almost looking for intimacy but cannot reach out to the mother and substitutes the child for that sexual intimacy. At other times, and I've seen this also time and time again, it might sound strange, but the father is blocked from connecting with the child as a daughter or a son or whatever it may be. And in constellation work, we often get the father to ask the mom, "Dear mom, may I love my child? May I love this child through you?" So it sounds a bit strange, but the father's love reaches the child through the mother because the mother is the one who carries the child. And if there's a disruption in the relationship between the parents, the child will often experience some form of abuse or can experience some form of abuse, whether it's physical or emotional from the father. Okay. Sometimes when there's an uncle or somebody else involved, there I've often seen that there's either some sort of violence, suicide, or mental illness in the family system from even at the grandparents level. And because we often don't talk about mental illness or we exclude those family members who have committed suicide, who have been violent or have suffered through mental illness, yeah, we don't really talk about their journey so much. Those family members get represented through various behaviors in their descendants, whether it's the uncle, the father, the cousin, etc. And those behaviors then translate into emotional, sexual, and physical abuse, unfortunately, to my clients. Yeah. And through family constellations therapy, we look at the inheritance of trauma, yeah, through these family members. And when we see that the trauma is inherited and it's passed around through generations, often what happens is my clients end up either forgiving the perpetrator or understanding that it's really not their fault. It wasn't their fault that the abuse happened. Yeah. It was due to something bigger than they could handle. And that's a big thing in sexual abuse when you're young is thinking it's your fault and you're responsible for it. So the key thing in constellation work is also to let go of that sense of responsibility that it was your fault. And also to find your place as the daughter or the child in the family rather than the substitute for as a sexual partner for the parent or for the uncle. Yeah. And we do these entanglement releases at the retreats that I run. So it's very important to do this with a qualified family constellations therapist. And of course, you're welcome to join me at these retreats, combining with a bit of Gestalt therapy and EMDR, because do these two therapies as well, I also use somatic experiencing, they help the nervous system reset from the trauma. So the constellation brings awareness and releases the trauma at some level. And then the Gestalt, the EMDR, the somatic experiencing releases the body somatically from the entanglement that keeps it nervous or in a fight, flight, or freeze response.
Yeah, really interesting. Thank you for giving us some information there about that trauma and how that could be affecting us or ancestrally be affecting us in some sort of way. And so I love that you brought up family constellations therapy. I know you do so much amazing work around that. Is there anything else you could tell us about how family constellations therapy can help with that sexual intimacy and relationships, whether that be an example or just some deeper information?
Absolutely. So we've understood a bit of the theory of what kind of entanglements happen that lead to abuse. Now, the beauty of family constellations therapy is that we don't need the family members present to resolve the trauma. Yeah, so when a client sees me at the retreats or online, we do healing sentences. The client says certain sentences that releases the trauma from their nervous system. For example, um, one client, I got her to say to her father, you had no right. Yeah. And just those words gave her a sense of agency and autonomy. Yeah. Even though you're my father, you had no right. Another sentence that's very important because often many mothers know about the abuse, but they don't say anything. And this is really painful for a child to experience. And so the child could say to the mom, I needed your help, or you knew, I know you knew, or something like that. Yeah, it depends on the energy of the person. Then we'll select certain sentences. And then hearing the mother or a representative for the mother, so I as the therapist or have somebody to represent the mother could say, I knew and I didn't do anything. My client feels acknowledged. Yeah. The person who is abused feels super acknowledged. And acknowledgement itself provides a deep release and relief for our nervous system because we feel seen once again and the truth is revealed. Once the truth is revealed, we're set free from fight, flight, or freeze. Yeah. Another sentence could be, you know, dear dad, I'm only your daughter. I'm not your wife. She is your wife. She's your partner. My mother's your wife, not me. Yeah. And that gets rid of some of the confusion because sometimes in child abuse, there's a certain loyalty to protect the parents. Yeah. Maybe because it was a survival technique. The father and the mother are providers of nurturing, of food, life, etc. And so it's hard to reject those parents sometimes, especially at a very young age. And so saying things in a safe manner, yeah, and still maintaining a sense of belonging to the family unit makes it okay for us to stand our ground and then come out of the relationship that involves sexual intimacy with a family member. So this is the beauty of family constellations. And I'll cover some homeopathic remedies we can also use for sexual abuse and things like that. And naturopathic medicine, of course, for vaginal dryness, erectile dysfunction, etc. But the root cause could be a family trauma, and it's important to include family constellations therapy in most of the therapies that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you for giving us some background there, some examples of what that might look like, what that might feel like for anyone who connects with some of those sentences that you said and could see that really helping them as well. And so you mentioned that homeopathy can help people heal from trauma as well. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Homeopathy is an energetic form of medicine. Yeah. It's made by diluting substances many times so that you don't have molecules left in the final medicine, but you have the vibration or the energetic memory, yeah, of the remedy. Why is that important? Because when we're traumatized, when we're in a state of fight, flight, or freeze, we're at a certain frequency, energetic frequency. And so to heal that frequency, it's important to use frequency medicines, yeah, versus just physical medicines or plants and chemical medicines. Frequency medicines like homeopathy, also Gestalt therapy and psychotherapy, those are all frequency therapies as well. Homeopathy comes in a pill or liquid form and it works at a frequency level as well. And because it works at a frequency level, it releases the trauma much faster. And I always combine homeopathy with psychotherapy to release trauma at a deeper level. Yeah. A common remedy, for example, Staphylos aureus is a homeopathic remedy used for sexual abuse, where there's a lot of suppressed anger, yeah, suppressed emotions. Carcinosin is often a remedy used as well when there's sexual abuse, um, when there's a lot of suppression by the parents, a lot of control over the child. Yeah. Ignatia is one where there's a lot of fear and anxiety. Yeah. So there's many different remedies we use for different kinds of abuse. I had one client with vaginismus or vaginal spasms after her partner shouted at her. It was a shock to her system. So then every time they had sex, it was like almost her body was refusing the intimacy because he was now at a biological level, he was a perpetrator. And so the vagina was kind of rejecting him. And she wanted to heal this, yeah. And once she discovered it was a shock that caused the vaginismus, I gave her Ignatia, yeah, a beautiful remedy for shock and a sense of betrayal. 2 weeks later, vaginismus disappeared, right? Other remedies we use, for example, let's say mom is betrayed by dad and you feel protective of mom. Yeah, so you become a parent for mom and you kind of reject dad. So in a way, you become over responsible. Yeah. And some people go into a bit of depression and like just they don't feel like they can enjoy life or intimacy anymore because they're kind of preoccupied with rescuing a parent. And that's very common. So I'll do some constellation work, family constellation therapy to kind of release the entanglement you have with mom and give her back her agency to looking after her own emotions. Yeah, and respecting yourself as a child and respecting her as the big one who's capable of sorting out her life. But I'll often give her remedies such as Natrum muriaticum, and I cover all these remedies in my online course. But Natrum muriaticum is a beautiful remedy when you have entanglements with your mom or grief that you've taken on for somebody else and there's like a breakup in the family or sadness, yeah, and resentment and a lack of pleasure, yeah. So it's important to use family constellations therapy to find the entanglement and the root cause, use homeopathic remedies to release the trauma from the system, yeah, and of course, looking at Gestalt and EMDR to somatically also get the body out of fight, flight, or freeze. Another homeopathic remedy I've used, somebody had erectile dysfunction after his girlfriend broke up with him. And he felt a lot of shame. And I think she had slept with somebody else. So he felt quite rejected. And so he couldn't function really well. Of course, we use naturopathic medicine like some adrenal herbs, rhodiola, ashwagandha, those help with the libido. But I use phosphoric acid, another homeopathic remedy for shock and trauma. Yeah. And the picture or the symptoms that related to phosphoric acid are experiencing shock and trauma, feeling really fatigued or anxious, and also possibly loss of libido, right? So in homeopathy, when we use homeopathic remedies, we look at the entire picture. Yeah. So we look at the kind of trauma a person has, betrayal, sexual abuse, shouted at, etc., shamed. Then we look at the symptoms you get as well. Do you have low libido? Do you have vaginismus? Do you have just a sense of betrayal? Do you have a fear of certain people? Do you have self-disgust? So like women who, or even men who have a sense of self-disgust and don't like themselves too much, a beautiful remedy to give is ambergris. Yeah. And this removes a lot of the shame. Another good one is a Bach flower remedy, and I cover all these in my online course. A Bach flower called crabapple. Crabapple is a great remedy to use when you feel a sense of uncleanliness in your system. Yeah, not perfect. Yeah, something's wrong with me and I need to fix myself all the time. So these are important remedies to look at in your healing journey, especially when you have some sense of shame, intimacy issues, sexual dysfunction, or erectile issues, vaginismus. And of course, vaginal dryness we'll cover when we talk about naturopathic medicine as well, because that's usually a hormonal imbalance related to liver health, adrenal health, and of course, hormone health.
Yeah, so I could totally see how so many emotional issues do end up affecting and leading to other physical issues as well, since those two are quite entwined. What about burnout? Does burnout play a role here at all?
Burnout plays a huge role in sex and sexual intimacy. So, if we have unresolved trauma from childhood and we're stressed in life as well, our body's in complete fight, flight, or freeze response continuously. And that eventually burns out our adrenal glands. We're making adrenaline, cortisol all the time. And when our adrenal glands burn out, then what happens is we don't have enough juice in our system. Yeah, we get in Chinese medicine, we call it a kidney yin or a kidney yang deficiency. And that's when you start to see hormonal imbalances, testosterone deficiencies, which of course lead to erectile issues as well, and vaginal dryness or hormonal imbalances also. I often see a progesterone deficiency happening as well, especially when there's liver toxicity. So a combination of adrenal burnout, liver toxicity disrupts our hormones significantly. And that can cause PMS symptoms, hormonal imbalances, endometriosis, which can also cause painful sex. Yeah. As well as for men, of course, it will cause erectile issues and just low energy, and a lack of interest in sex as well, which can cause intimacy problems between couples also.
Yeah, I could see burnout playing such a big role here and causing some issues. And so, since there is that tie between emotional, but also there still can be physical issues that are directly related to other physical things, could you talk about how issues like erectile dysfunction, vaginal dryness, or other physical issues may be tied to gut health, inflammation, liver detox, and or trauma release, how that could help?
Absolutely, Brielle. So those of you listening, we've already covered the shock and trauma and stress causing these issues. But let's look at gut health, liver health, etc., related to sexual intimacy. So we have a gut and a gut lining, yeah, stomach, intestines, etc. This lining is kept healthy by good bacteria and good food. Over time, with antibiotic use, a poor diet, inflammatory foods, the gut lining gets killed off. The good bacteria in our gut get killed off as well, and we get holes in the intestine, and that causes toxins to leak in the bloodstream, and that causes inflammation everywhere in the body. That chronic inflammation disrupts our hormones. Okay, and it also causes fat deposits and also inflammatory deposits. How do I say this? Our blood vessels get damaged. And when blood vessels get damaged, the liver sends LDL and cholesterol to repair those damaged blood vessels. There's clotting that happens there. And when our blood vessels then get clogged, there's less blood flow to the penis and other intimate organs. So some people with erectile issues can have a blood flow issue also, stemming from, of course, cortisol imbalance, LDL or lipid imbalance, but most of that is the root cause is chronic inflammation from the ikigai. Now, what happens is this inflammation also goes to the liver, our master organ, which metabolizes our hormones, which detoxifies the body, which helps with digestion and all these things. And our liver is always intoxicated with pesticides, chemicals in the drinking water, drugs, alcohol, etc. So a combination of toxins as well as chronic inflammation slams our liver. And so our liver becomes what we call stagnant in Chinese medicine. And with liver stagnation, then we produce less bile. So we have improper digestion, so more gas, bloating, constipation, etc. We have more hormonal imbalances, so progesterone deficiency or estrogen excess, which leads to these hormonal issues and vaginal issues. And also testosterone suffers, right? So we become low in testosterone as well. And that can cause sexual issues as well. So in my online course, I cover how to heal the gut and the liver and the adrenal system together. The adrenal glands, of course, are burnt out, one by stress and trauma, like we talked about, but also by chronic inflammation, because chronic inflammation drives or stresses our adrenal glands to produce cortisol to reduce inflammation. So a combination of toxicity as well as inflammation, as well as stress, yeah, harms our gut, our liver, our adrenal system, and therefore our mood, as well as our sexual strength or basically enjoyment, right? And so in the online course, I cover remedies like probiotics, glutamine, vitamin D, herbs to detoxify the liver like milk thistle and dandelion. Also, adrenal supporting herbs, ashwagandha, rhodiola, those all nourish our system back to optimal health. And when you heal these three pillars of health, the gut, the liver, and the adrenal system, as well as release emotional trauma using the psychotherapy and the homeopathy I talked about, and then heal systemic trauma, the family trauma, the entanglements using family constellations therapy, you end up healing the five major pillars of your health. Yeah, the gut, liver, adrenals, emotional trauma, as well as systemic trauma. And when you heal these five pillars, your health just skyrockets. Yeah, everything feels much better. And then you live the life that you deserve. Yeah, so most people are dabbling in supplements and random therapies without treating these five root causes. Yeah. So really, I encourage listeners, look at these five root causes first, and you'll depend less on excessive medicines, therapies, and supplements.
Yes, beautifully said. That was so much great information, and I appreciate you addressing some of those things we might not think about that could be tied to our sex lives and our intimate lives. And so it was great to learn so much great information there about those five pillars, about all these different aspects today that can really lead us to living our healthiest lives. And let's talk a little bit about how people can dive deeper with you and the lovely work you do. I know you have some free gifts on your website such as a free ebook and some videos, and we have a button leading over to that below if you'd like to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's free videos and masterclasses on gut healing, liver detox, adrenal healing, emotional healing. There's masterclasses on family constellations therapy, combining that with trauma release, homeopathy, and healing the five pillars. There's a best-selling book out there on healing these systems. There's online courses as well on homeopathy, family constellation therapy, and healing the five pillars. And then I run retreats in beautiful locations in the world: Sardinia, Greece, Kenya, as well. Kenya, where you can combine it with safaris and beach time. Maybe there'll be some in Costa Rica as well. And these retreats involve a lot of deep family constellations therapy. So I encourage you to look at these online courses, do the courses, and come for these retreats because these retreats give you the deepest healing that you can imagine.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing about all of those great resources that you offer. And as a reminder to everyone watching or listening, you can click the button below and head over to Dr. Amit's website to check all of those things out. And then, are there any final insights you'd like to share before we wrap up, Dr. Amit?
Hmm. So yeah, what's coming to me right now is we have a lot of shame around sex as a society, right? And that comes from, of course, upbringing, from schools, from organized religion, and also from our parents, yeah? But they were affected, of course, by certain cultures, colonialism, again, organized religion, etc. So it's not really their fault. It's just been passed on through generations. And so when something happens to us, when we cannot perform well, we suffer very deeply inside, yeah? And we feel rejected. So I encourage people, first of all, to understand that a lot of sexual shame is not natural. It comes from society. So it's not yours to carry on behalf of society. You can let it go and find your own journey towards intimacy, self-forgiveness, self-love, and connect with your partners at that level of tenderness, of intimacy, of forgiveness, and really be patient with each other and understanding because there's no rush in sex. Yeah. Sex is a beautiful journey. Yeah. Especially if it's done well. No pun intended, but you know what I mean. And it opens up our heart to such a deep understanding of each other and a journey of love, of exploration, of soul evolvement. So really be patient with yourself in your sexual journey, and I really wish you well.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom with us today.
Thank you, Brielle, and lots of love, everyone. Take care.